So I think I'm recording now. So let me start by introducing my buddy Jared, who's on here. You know, I've spoken a little bit about Jared. Don't tell him the bad things I said about him, but we'll just stick with the good things. So I met Jared
Please.
actually in January of last year. Wow, it doesn't it's weird. It seems like forever ago, but not that long ago at the same time.
Hey, time flies.
I know. So coming up almost on 2 years. And I'm gonna let Jared share more of his story specifically, but Jared is an attorney and went to school actually out in the Midwest and served as a prosecutor or district attorney, assistant district attorney here in New York. Great guy. We have a lot of things that we talk about and probably we're going to be working on moving forward. I think we agree on a lot of the big things, but we have a lot of different thoughts about life, law, all of that good stuff. But he's a great guy, and actually did some stuff. Well, I'll let him share about with South America with some exchange stuff. So, Jared, if you can just kind of take it away, share a bit about your story. Like where you're from.
Absolutely.
And kind of what brings you here.
So I'm from a real small town in Illinois, Rock Island, Illinois, right on the Mississippi River. Tiny town. There's more people that lived on my street in New York than live in my entire town where I grew up. So I most recently have been living in Queens, New York, where I've worked as an assistant district attorney. I have handled anywhere from misdemeanor cases involving assaults and thefts to human trafficking, fraud when it comes to insurance, money laundering, all of those things I've gotten some experience in the last few years. It's been a great experience, and I hope that some of my lessons, some of what I have to offer will really help you guys along, each and every one of you. Now, I School of Law with University of Cape Town, I believe. And
Jared, can you say that one more time? I don't know if that was my internet, but I think you went out a little bit. So can you just say that one more time? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I went to University of Missouri School of Law, which I believe has a partnership with Cape Town in terms of doing exchange programs. University of Missouri School of Law does a lot of, their LLM program does a lot of focusing on mediation, negotiation, alternative dispute resolution. And I also in law school was a big participant in the Entrepreneurial Legal Clinic. During the clinic, my group focused on not only helping people form their business, whether that be talking through a client through the process of creating an LLC or a sole proprietorship or a partnership. We kind of talked the clients through the pros and cons of each, and then help them actually establish their business legally, helping them get the tax numbers needed, helping them file the paperwork, and helping them get their business started. And I also, once the business was started, we would help people get their businesses going in terms of getting protection for their product or their flagship product. And that can come in the form of trademarks, patents, copyrights, trade secrets. We walked a client through each and every one of those and help them kind of understand the difference between a patent, a trademark, a copyright, and also what it took to get their trademarks and patents. I remember one client we had wanted us to help him apply for a patent on his product. We talked to him about how it needed to be unique, how he needed to be the owner, and how the product needed to do what he said it was going to do. Now, I remember we had to tell him, you actually cannot get a patent on this because it infringes on an existing patent. It's not unique enough. And he says, well, geez, what's the product and who has it? I said, you do. You have the patent on this product. And he was just trying to, I guess, improve on the product, but it wasn't different enough than what he already owned and had already created. So we kind of helped him establish what steps would need to be taken to show that his new patent would be unique from his old. And then I also did a lot of focus on at least in the United States, we have what's called minority business enterprises, veterans business enterprises, women business enterprises. And those distinctions kind of change state to state. But the overall concept is that in order to help resolve inequalities, past inequalities, governments, state governments and the federal government will give preferential treatment when it comes to contract bidding and other sort of situations where they will give preferential treatment to minority business owners, veterans, and women business owners as well. And we kind of talked clients through each of the requirements when it comes to getting those certifications and how they can use them to grow and expand their business. So that's kind of my background, where I'm coming from, and I hope to give you guys all the advice and help in the world that I can, and maybe even learn a thing or two myself.
All right, thank you, Jared. Definitely appreciate that. And so I think one of the things that would be a good use of our time starting off is I asked each person for this week to bring. Well, I'm gonna ask you what I asked you to bring. What did I ask for us to discuss this week?
I guess I'll go.
Okay.
So you asked us, it was highly important for us to sort of detail what the product or service was, and the delivery of that product, how we deliver that product or service, and then who do we market it to and how do we market that product?
Yes.
Excellent.
So I'm going to ask each person to go through and share that. And I definitely want Jared to give like his first sense impression of thoughts on, ideas, whatever comes, to his head. Jared, I know that we had talked about, like, you gave some advisement before of people with business structures. I know the business structures are probably are different in South Africa, but just some thoughts on what legal protections might be needed. Because for some of you, I think you have some ideas that there's some protections that would probably make sense for you to put in place. So that's the best. I think that's how we're going to proceed today. So just real quickly, just recapping from last week, if someone can just share with us, what are the three things that we talked about, like the three buckets that are very important to thinking about a business?
Here I would go.
Thanks, CD.
So the three pillars, let's say, it's first the description of the product or service. Second, the delivery. And third, the marketing.
Absolutely.
And talking about marketing, we underline the importance of the intentionality as one of the keys of success in entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. So,
and the intentional, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Jared.
I was just going to add, intentionality is key, it's crucial, critical here, because when you go to apply to protect your product, whatever that be, one of the things you're going to have to show is that each of those design elements are intentional, that the way that you built the product is intentional, and it adds to the product's function or look, or it adds to the product in some way. That way that you will be able to say, I'm the only one that has this sort of intentional design, and I did it that way on purpose, and here's why it should be protected.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and in that intentionality, and I'm glad, thank you, CD, for kind of reminding us of that. Jared, we've been focused on, so kind of to give you, and I know you've seen some of the videos already, but we started with gifts. What is your gift? What do you, what is your core gifting? That's what we kind of started with. Then we brought it to, how do your gifts / talents / strengths and your skills and your passions intersect, where is that place? That's where you build your business. And so now we're at this point where we're discussing how does that business look? We talked about looking at the blueprint for other people who have substantially the same gifts as we do. How are they using their gifts? What are the ways that it's manifesting to them? How are they diversifying? And so as we talk about these three lanes, there's intentionality with all three. One, the description of the delivery, of the service or product, which is generally only what people think about. But it's more than that. It's also the delivery. How do I deliver it? How do I make sure that it gets to the people? And then marketing. How do people know what it is that I do? So when we talk today, I would like each of you, this is good because we have three people, so we've got a good number of time, time to do this. I want each of you to really dig down into each of those three distinctly, so it's clear that you thought about each distinctively. The marketing, the delivery, the description. And the last thing I'll say is, Jared, this kind of precipitated in some ways because CD asked a question. We were going to cover it anyway, but I think it was like 2 weeks ago. How do I stand out? What makes me different? Well, that's part of the answer. We're looking at these three lanes, and in each lane there should be something that's a differentiator with you. So who would like to go first? Of course, we can call on people, but
I nominate Zach.
Okay, you're gonna go, Paco? Okay. That's what I'm talking about.
No, I was saying Zach should go first. Ladies first.
Oh, volunteering someone else.
I can go.
Why don't give someone else a chance this week?
Yeah,
I always talk.
I like that one.
I can go, yeah. If
All right,
you.
go ahead, see. Nice try, Paco.
So yeah, my flagship project is first the description of the project itself.
Mhm.
So it's a seminar, or it could be also virtually. So it could be a webinar meaning online. So seminar, it's face-to-face, or webinar online. And the seminar is entitled Citizenship in the 21st Century. So that's just what is it? So the delivery of this seminar webinar could be.
Hold on, wait a minute. Before we get to delivery, can we just stick with the description?
Okay.
Could you just talk about that a little more? What's happening and why is that different?
Yeah, if you could really flesh that out, the description of the citizenship in the 21st century and exactly the key point you would want to hit, something that you would hit every time that you spoke to a group of people. Something that we know we're getting from Sydney every time.
Okay, that's a good way to think about it. I didn't see it like that, but yeah. So I link it to like my commitment to building democratically our citizens. So I think that's more theoretical in comparison to what you are looking for. But yeah, I get your point, but I didn't see it like that. But I see what you mean, like the uniqueness of my seminar. That's what you are referring to.
Yeah, like let's say you were giving this, I hired you as a like a civil society organization. Let's say I focus on getting people out to vote and I want to hire you. Now, what will I get from you that I can count on each and every time? Let's say whether I have a civil society organization or I own a bank. What am I getting from you?
That's a
you
question.
will get like the motivation that I will instill to your participants as if you are hiring me to provide this training to your people, for instance. So I will motivate them. I will build kind of a trust in democracy in these since these days democracy is kind of in jeopardy, namely in the United States right now. So yeah, it's motivate your people, like to help them see democracy as a public good, like something we need in order to lift up our lives, and yeah, in order to live in a quiet and also prosperous society. By prosperous, democracy means also like the good repartition, divide of the resources, like inequalities, for instance. Let's say the importance of having a good healthcare insurance, for instance. So all these issues are linked to democracy in a certain way.
I might challenge you. This is all really good foundation. It sounds like you've got a good theoretical foundation. I would just challenge you to make it more concrete. You know, think about who your target audience would be and focus on that specific group. Because while I said earlier, you know, whether I'm a bank executive who wants to hire you to speak to his people, or a voting rights organization that wants to hire you to speak, I would focus more on just one target audience or a few target audiences, whether that be young people, whether that be church groups, whatever group that you feel that you can most relate to, really. And just dig deeper, because that will help you find like key points that you want to bring up. Something that I know every single time I'm going to get from you, every time I hire you. And I can tell people, hey, he's going to go and talk about this specific thing, and it's going to be moving and it's going to be impactful. That way you are not moving around in terms of what you want to talk. And while adapting your speeches to each group is critical, at the same time, you want a good concrete foundation.
Yep.
And just pinpointing details will help you with that, like intentionality that we talked about.
Yeah. Yeah, Jared, thanks for that. I mean, this is one of the things. So I know next week is our last week. So CD, you got some work ahead of you, because I want to make sure we get this before it's all said and done. I think the key, and this is something we've been talking about for a while with you and I, is specificity. That's key. Like, I hear what you're saying. Okay, you want to motivate, want to inspire, but you know how it is, right? So think about it like this. You know, don't think about it as the professor. Think about it as one of your students. Any class, most likely that you're teaching now, other professors are also offering that course. So why come to you for that? So I don't want you to give these general, we want to help people think about democracy different, or inspire people, push people up, all of that stuff that's noble, but very broad and general and theoretical. Like, how specific, why would I come to your democracy class and not to somebody else's? Or maybe I will go to theirs too, but what is it that yours is going to offer? Remember, we talked about last week, what are the stories that you can tell that other people can't tell? What's the perspective that you have that other people don't have? See, this is where those are the questions you think about in that lane as far as the description of the service. What do you bring to bear? Remember, I explained to you last time that the class that I took, Obama and the presidential election of 2008, when I was in law school, the professor that taught it, he was world renowned for writing the book Nigger. He was a already a world-renowned legal scholar, legal I guess academic brain around race and all of those things. So when he teaches this class, his critical incident, I want everybody to write that word down, because critical incident just means, it's a phrase that just means, or a term that means, what made him different is that he has a totally different perspective. Yeah, other people can research the statistics too, and other people can spit out race, research, but he has the credibility of having done this for 30 years. So you got to ask yourself, what do you bring?
So you're a professor, right?
Yeah.
So you're a professor, and as a professor, do you have to create lesson plans that you write out or type out, whether to help you or to show the administration at your school that you teach at?
Yeah, I teach business law, yeah.
So I think you might actually gain a lot by almost using the template from your teaching plans, your lesson plans, and apply that to citizenship in the 21st century. Actually write out your lesson plan for citizenship in the 21st century. And I think that might help you gain the specifics, really flush those out in terms of the program you want to create.
Yes.
Good.
We can, that's going to be the biggest piece for you there. So really quickly, just kind of pivoting a bit to the marketing. Do you know who your target is, CD?
Yeah, the more specifically, it's the student of my current college in Ottawa.
Okay.
So these are my primary targets.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah.
And how are you going to deliver this? How is this going to be a different type of delivery?
There will be like video capsules, and also like using YouTube, for instance, with a specific, like it's not a YouTube available for everyone, but just for people who sign for it. And then I could have, since we are in the midst of the COVID-19, so it could be like remotely by Zoom, also kind of virtual delivery. And when business comes to normal, then face-to-face teaching, like in classrooms. So yeah, the delivery aspect is yes.
How is it written out? How have you written out that you want your delivery to be?
Written out could be like through PowerPoint.
How have you already written out the delivery? Because I feel like it's a lot of making it up as we're going along. I don't want to do that, CD. I don't want to do that. I want to talk about what's been prepared. So okay, I'm not even gonna put you on the spot that way. This is for everybody next week. I really want you to write this down clearly, specifically. Because see, when you write it down, I want to bring it out of the land of could, it might be, and this is a good idea. No, this is my product. If right now the provost said, we have money for some extra courses, you have to know, with everything going on in the world, more universities are going to be looking at things like this: democracy, race relations, all, kind of that space. So let's say the provost right now walked up to me and said, we've got some extra money. We want to do some different courses. Put a proposal on my desk. I want that proposal to already be done. This isn't going to be 10 pages. It really doesn't even have to be longer than a page, but it's in 3 distinct parts. This is what my class, in your case, my class looks like, and how it's going to be different, like in what I'm saying. This is what how I'm going to deliver it. And this is how the delivery is going to be different. And as far as, sorry, go ahead, Jared.
In terms of how this is different, and this applies to everyone, really think about what your competitors are already doing. existing companies or existing people that are already operating in your space, look at what they're doing, and that will help you determine exactly what you're doing differently, what you're bringing to the table that's different from anyone else, or even better. And there's no shame in incorporating what someone else is doing and improving on it entirely. But specificity will be key there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jared, because that reminds me of, remember, I think it was week 3 where we discussed the blueprint, where we identified people. So we didn't, in that case, think of it as competitors, although that is a point too to look at competitors, but we were looking at people who have similar gifting and how has that manifested? Because yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Jared. I mean, I don't reinvent the wheel if you don't have to. If you already see people who are teaching these types of classes, they already are doing this sort of thing, then use what they have. So, CD, quick story on marketing those types of democracy classes. I always think about this. It's this man, a professor, I won't say his name. He's a great guy though, like one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. He was one of my professors at law school, Rhodes Scholar, all of this other stuff. Like valedictorian of his college class at Yale. Like this guy is just next level. But this goes to about uniqueness and being qualified to teach. Well, he taught a class called Constitutional, something about constitutions. I can't remember, but I didn't take the class. I took another class with the professor. But anyway, I'm bringing this up for this reason. Because mind you, everybody on this panel that he's speaking on are law school professors as well. All of them were actually Harvard Law School professors. But he comes in and he says, in a very nice way, but he says, this is an interesting panel about constitutions. Nobody on this panel, though, has actually written one except for me. And he begins to talk about how, he did it in an interesting way, but it was like in his own way. And he began to talk about how President Bush had appointed him to be one of the folks to write Iraq's constitution, during that whole time of transition. But I'm bringing that up to say that was what kind of differentiated him, even at that level, amongst everybody else that could also say, hey, we do research on constitution. His thing was, I wrote one. And I wrote one in the modern day with a country that was in turmoil and is still going through it. So that's what I want you to begin to think about. What can you say that even if somebody else took your rubric, so to speak, that you could say, you can take my rubric, but you still couldn't deliver it the way I can deliver it or speak on it the way I can speak on it because I have A, B, C, and D behind me. Does that make sense? All right. Okay. Jared, unless you had anything else to say with CD, I would probably go to the next person. Did you want to say anything else, Jared?
No, I would just reiterate, CD, you've got a great foundation. Citizenship in the 21st century, especially as it applies to race and politics, is already a hot topic. It's only going to continue to get hot. And I would just say push with it, dig deep in terms of specificity as possible, be as specific as possible, and that'll help you decide who exactly your target audience is and exactly what sets you apart.
Yes. And I think the last thing I'll say here really quickly to you, CD, I don't think marketing for you is going to be as big of a challenge if you're doing it in the confines of school, because I would encourage you to use the network you have. Mm-hmm. However, keep that in mind because depending on how this course goes, there's an opportunity to do this course at colleges all across the world. So then marketing does become something because whereas at your college now, they know you, they've employed you, but how do you begin to think about another institution that doesn't know who you are, seeing what you have?
And that's where videotaping and all of that will be crucial as well.
Yes.
And I know you already talked about that, so I won't go into detail. So
yes, that's
excellent.
Key.
Thank you.
That's actually key. Thank you. All right, so Paco, since you're gonna go next, Paco.
Can I sit this one out?
Oh no! You definitely can't sit this one out.
Okay. I thought about what you said last time along the lines of mediation.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was in court actually yesterday. We're having a trial, and it stuck something inside of me because the witness had a very strong case, but the evidence was quite poor, you know. So it got me thinking about what I would like to offer, and that is a dispute resolution center that offers mediation and arbitration. You know, it got me thinking about the legal costs as well. And in our country, legal fees are quite exorbitant, and I'm sure as is in every country. You know, it's quite expensive. The process is quite long. A case in our country can take anything from 2 to 3 years or even 5 years. And in that time, you're spending a lot of money, you know. So what I want to offer is quick solution or resolution to disputes, you know, and offer legal education as well. That is the service that I want to provide, you know, and the delivery of it, or the delivery of it.
Before we get to delivery, can I just ask you a question? And I'm not trying to lead you in any one way. I'm just curious. Where did the leadership thing go?
Well, it's still there. And you asked me about what I think leadership is, and my perception of it, and all of that. But it's still there.
So I actually had a question. Oh, so
go ahead, Jared, but I want to know where it went. You saying it's there, but sorry. I'm trying to figure out where it went. Go ahead, Jared, because I don't know what Paco's talking about right now. You go ahead and then let me relook at my notes, because maybe I got something.
Well, I think a mediation and alternative dispute resolution center is a really cool idea. I had a question about your design itself. You said you want to do two things, which was offer quick resolution, I assume through mediation, negotiation. And then secondly, you said you wanted to offer an education. Now, are the recipients, is your target audience for those two different things? Are those different people, or do you want to offer an education while offering a quick resolution? Because I might suggest making those two different target audiences entirely. Because if I'm just a party in a mediation, I might not necessarily be interested in, you know, what I consider boring legal facts and things, but I am interested in a quick legal resolution of my problems because I don't want to sit in court for 2 to 5 years, as you mentioned. So, but however, once you're established in terms of having your center run, established and grow, education will be critical, because then you can offer services to other attorneys who might be looking to get into the alternative dispute resolution field. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
So I would really flesh out the who my target audience is for those two prongs, because those are really cool prongs, and you really want to make sure that you're hitting those with the right audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
And go ahead.
I have an idea as how you would offer a quick solution people who already or full-fledged mediation practices.
So, okay, and I like that. I think you're right on it, Jared. So Paco, I'm gonna come back. You know, I see you smiling. You know, I'm gonna come back to you. I'm gonna come back to you because all of these weeks, I mean, I know it was a couple weeks that we may not have seen, but you know, we've been talking about leadership, John Maxwell. Every other sentence is leadership this, leadership that. So I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going to get to dispute resolution in a second. I just need to know who I'm talking to first. I just need to know, where did the leadership thing, you know, where did it go? Help me understand that.
Yeah, I don't know whether you would recall that one of the questions in identifying our strengths was to think back to an incident or some time way back in our childhood. And I narrated that story of me and wanted to get people to get along and all of that. So, you know, I think I had some time to really think about it, and I still really do love leadership, and want to teach and train in leadership. But I think what came out more like as the discussion went to say, in my skill, what is it that I can offer with regards to my legal background?
Have you taken part in mediations, negotiations, or mediated before?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you have a lot of experience in that, and that'll be crucial. That's key. Now, have you ever sat in on mediations that other people have been doing and kind of seen what worked well for them and what didn't?
Quite a few, yeah.
So is there
Not a
something,
lot.
if I go to your dispute resolution center as opposed to the guys down the street, what are you going to bring me that they won't?
I think the interesting thing is that there are quite a few dispute resolution centers in our country. Everybody has a law firm that is offers traditional legal services. And the only time mediation comes to play is at the instance of the judge, where the judge says to the parties, I think you guys should go for mediation or arbitration.
Is there a requirement? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
At the labor court. At the labor court, there is a requirement.
Okay. Good. Because I remember in the United States, at least, often in certain types of cases, labor cases and other types of cases, depending on the state, the judge will say, hey, we're not even going to move forward until you guys engage in a mediation and negotiation of some sort.
Yeah.
And that might be crucial, is hitting up the labor law field and reaching out to attorneys that are already operating in that space and saying, hey, you need somebody who's just focused on mediation, just focused on negotiation. It'll allow me to offer that quick resolution because I'm only doing those things.
Yeah.
Because you said that most alternative dispute resolution centers have also a full-fledged legal practice.
Yes, actually, there isn't one dispute resolution center in our country. There's just traditional law firms that offer it as a service.
Yeah. So with your firm or your center just focusing on mediation and negotiation, that might be key for you because it allows you to only focus on doing mediation and negotiation, not dealing with everyone else's cases, whatever type they may be. So that's really awesome. I mean, that's crucial. And it's just a matter of how would you market it?
I think the great marketing tool that I'm thinking about is the convenience of having your dispute resolved quite quickly and affordable at an affordable price. And then the third thing that I really want to focus on, because there's a shift or there's a high involvement in entrepreneurship in the country currently. I'm from Botswana, by the way. The main economic drivers is diamonds and tourism. So the government is working on diversifying the economy, and a lot of people have been advised to go into entrepreneurship. We want to be an exporting country. We are having foreign direct investment, which means quite a lot of people are now going into setting up businesses and entrepreneurship journeys, and the government is giving out a lot of funding for startups and small businesses. So I think for me, the important thing is I want to offer entrepreneurs specifically alternative dispute resolution, because we all know how important it is for businesses to continue and not have to be stuck in court for 3 to 5 years. It disturbs business a lot.
Yeah.
So that's how I want to market it.
And how, I mean, so we know the contents of your marketing and your message. How do you actually foresee yourself doing that, getting that message out?
The thing that I want to do is be involved in the business associations. You know, for example, I'm already a member of the Botswana Agricultural Sector Association. It's a group of farmers across the country. So I'm a member, and I know a lot of them are going into transactions, you know, so I intend to go into membership, be a member of these different associations and network during our meetings and find out who's doing what and offer them that service.
Excellent. And that's key. Networking is crucial. And have you mentioned that for labor cases, mediation is required. Do you know if there's a list that all the courts keep, such as the Bar Association or some association list of alternative dispute resolution practitioners or mediators that can easily be called upon, or, you know, just so people have your name in a list of mediators if it is a required step?
Well, it's not a required, well, it's a required step, but there isn't a list provided. But what I've seen at the labor court is that people have put up their names to say, I'm a labor consultant. So essentially that's what they call themselves at the labor court. Yeah, they call themselves labor consultants, and they put up their names at the court notice board.
And they're the ones that are doing the mediating between the people who have disputes, you're saying?
Yeah.
Got it. So I have a couple of thoughts on this. Yeah, and Jared gave a lot of great ideas I hadn't even thought about. The first thing is, whatever it is that we're creating for these, you know, because next week is our last week, I don't want it to be so far out that it seems like it's not attainable. So like with CD's creating a class that it can be created now. I mean, you essentially have the class in your mind. I'm sure with everything you've already done, you've already taught it, even if it's just in pieces. So that's a curriculum, a syllabus, a rubric that we can have in hand along with a mini proposal by the end of the 7 weeks. My only concern about a dispute resolution center, look, down the road, that's wonderful. I don't want to talk about something now that it's like, how do we even build? I mean, because when you say center, is that a physical building? Do you go get the building? Like, what does that look like? What can we talk about in 7 weeks? So this is your project. So if it's dispute resolution, what does that service look like? Let's narrow that down to something that can be done now, right where you are, without a building, without, you know, all of the things that probably come with calling a center a center. So for next week, I really want you, Paco, to write down very specifically these 3 lanes. What is the description of the service? What is the delivery of that service look like? And how does the marketing look? Very specifically. Now, I have a couple ideas as far as, look, you've mentioned leadership a lot, and I think that that's just something that's there. And yeah, I think you should explore, maybe it's not with this, but explore where there might be some synergies. I could see a few. One might be teaching in colleges and high schools or those age groups, conflict resolution skills. That's a big thing, especially now. Like a lot of people just don't have conflict resolution skills and they haven't been taught it. It's not really something that's taught on. I could see you teaching this even in companies. I mean, you want to know how many companies and how much money they spend on litigation. And if they could, I mean, some companies, they hire people to just come in and mediate. But even if you're not doing the actual mediation for the case, what if you did the same thing? You're teaching their managers, let's say, how to de-escalate. Or you're teaching their supervisors how to work with other people, conflict resolution. That's a part of being a leader. I mean, maybe that's your sort of lean, your John Maxwell lean into what is leadership. Well, well, maybe your philosophy is that leadership is really about chiefly resolving conflict. And that's what I do. I help people resolve conflict. I can physically do it myself, or I can teach people how to be more effective at result. And that could be a lot of fun. It can be, when you talk about delivery and how it can be different, you do scenarios, you can do role play. It's so many things that are fun, I think, with dispute resolution and conflict resolution in that teaching space that you can do. But the key is, Paco, this, I don't want this to be some over the river, down the woods type thing. I mean, no, really, I don't want to just be, well, you know, I'll create a center. No.
Yeah.
For next week, I want this specific. I want this to be something that this is what it is, and this is what I'm doing right this moment.
Paco, I had a question.
Yes.
In Botswana, is it required that a mediator actually have a mediation certificate or be registered as a mediator?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Officially?
No, there isn't a requirement.
Okay, so that's not a requirement. So logistically speaking, if you have a web camera and you have a flyer you can put in the courthouse, you can have your entire mediation center almost created, and the center's in your laptop, really, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When I was in Boston, I used to do court mediation. So, I mean, we didn't do it virtually, but yeah, I mean, it's a big, it's so many ways you can go with that, Paco, but I think it's key. Whatever you're writing down that we're going to talk about next week, whatever it is that you're writing down and that you're writing down in detail and specific, let it be something where and that's what I'm gonna ask you specifically this, where your passions, your skills, and your gifts intersect with it. I don't want this to just be a good idea that someone else could do. So, because there's no question, dispute resolution, it's a huge business, it's a big need, there's no question about any of that. But where does that relate with you? You know, where does it, and the reason why passion is so important, when you're building anything, the commitment that it takes, the perseverance, you have to have something that you would want to do anyway.
Yeah,
it can't be something you have sort of an interest in, and it's like, well, you know, I'll try this. No, this has to be something that's like, I love this, I eat, sleep, and dream this. All right, does that make sense?
Yeah. Right. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Maybe you could do this. We have a couple minutes to the end. Can you find that strengths thing, that the circles that you filled out? Can you find that on your computer? I'm gonna ask you to pull that up.
Okay, I'll try.
You showed it, right?
I think I did.
Or was it ever just verbal? No, I'm gonna let Zach go now, but so why you find that?
Okay,
if you
cool.
don't see that, because what I want to kind of ask you to do anyway is refill that out for next week.
Okay, no, that's okay.
You do that, yeah, along with the assignment. And the reason why I'm asking that is whenever I feel like something came out of left field, I mean, honestly, we've only been together 6 weeks, once a week, so you're gonna know yourself much better. But if something comes like that, then I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute, let's kind of, so yeah, let's go ahead and fill out. You smile. No, I'm serious. Because I don't want to drop that. That's a big piece with you. I know you mentioned that several times. Leadership, philosophy behind leadership, what makes leaders leaders. This might be an opportunity they mesh hand in hand, but I don't want you to just drop that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you. All right, Zach. So Zach sort of has a little bit of a head start, Jared, because Zach already has a business in place. And This is about pivoting and developing what's already in place.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think I'm also going to throw a bit of a curveball today, but let me try. So your exercise that you gave us right at the beginning about skills, passion, and gifts, I've sort of been trying to apply that sort of thinking in everything that I'm doing now to find where I should actually be landing. And I know last week, so we sort of did a bit of a pivot from legal services, which is what I currently provide, to coaching. I've signed up for a bunch of coaching courses. I'm spending about 2 or 3 hours a day doing online coaching sessions, meeting up with people I've mentored to understand what the experience was, how it went for them. And to be honest, I don't think I'm ever going to be a pure coach. It takes a lot of sort of being quiet and listening to people's chaos and not actually shaking them and going, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Sort of have to guide you. And I don't, to be honest, I really don't have that much patience to pursue full coaching. But I definitely think what I've learned is that there's a lot of skills and I've been applying that this past week that you can acquire through coaching that make it very much easier for you to deliver a legal service. So I'm sort of pivoting back to legal in a way. And so so what I do, Jared, just to give you some context, is I provide, I'm a corporate commercial lawyer. I do mergers and acquisitions.
Cool.
For large corporates. And so I was in practice for a long time with Hogan Lovells, and then went in-house, worked for Big Tobacco and all of the other big guys. And then I moved into the finance sector and really just started up my own thing. And actually British American Tobacco and 2 of our largest banks and MasterCard as well are my clients now. But my focus is really startups, but the big corporates are nice because they give you the financing you need to carry on. So that's where I'm at. And I think the difference now with the coaching, the legal advisory services is still to just hone in on that and develop that to make it more accessible to startups. But what I've been missing, I think, is that coaching flair, which sort of softens the blow a bit, and the difference in approach. So with lawyers and with me specifically, I'm very to the point, very direct. I'm like, let's not waste time. You're paying by the minute. Let's get. Whereas
I wish we had you in New York.
Why?
In terms of getting to the point, yeah.
I'm not getting to the point today. I'm taking my time. No, but with the coaching approach, I think what I've sort of been assessing with my clients over the past week is that they're a lot more receptive and engaging when you're taking more of a coaching approach of asking a lot of the deeper questions that you would take, as you're doing, Darrell, with us, when you ask us, well, have you thought about this and why do you think that? It's sort of going in that direction. And so they get to their solutions themselves, maybe a little bit longer, but they feel like they've achieved something on the business front. And then they go, okay, well, can you make this happen? And then I draft the legal documents to it. And so that's sort of been a nice sort of pivot. I think it's a bit of a pivot. It's more in my approach to how I deal with the client. But I think that I'm sticking to legal advisory services on a corporate basis to startups. And then again, with our consultants, it was a lot easier to bring them in because I've got a labor law specialist and a regulatory and mining specialist and tech specialist, all of that. And so they come in when it's out of my sort of area of expertise. So that's been good. And so in giving the product more shape, I think what I've really need to focus on is creating manuals, like how-to manuals, not these lengthy books, but sort of 1 or 2 pages that say, oh, you want to start a business, here's your link, this is what you do next, these are your steps, this is sort of how much you're going to have to budget. And then also on the template side, which is something I have been doing, but not as detailed, is creating these basic templates, because especially with startups, a lot of the things are very textbook. It's not overly complicated. So creating a template framework with the right questions in it, which comes from the coaching approach of putting the questions in it and go, so you'll have a limitation of liability clause, for example, but you'd put the key questions in to get them to think about how it actually works in their day-to-day and what are their risks. So they can think, you give them the template, they can go through it, think about it themselves and grapple with what they actually want to get out. They can then give you their comments and you can then create an agreement for them that's more bespoke, or they can take their comments and go to the other party and say, listen, these are my initial thoughts. This is what I got. You want to add your thoughts, and they can actually settle it between themselves and then give it to me to finalize, which then cuts out the legal mess and the costly exercise right in the beginning.
Absolutely.
So that's sort of the packaging of it. It's just making it a lot easier through a coaching approach.
So this seems very concrete, very specific. Thank you. I was curious about whether you thought about how to actually obtain these new clients. Now that we've talked about what you want to do for them? Have you thought
Yeah.
at all about the marketing, about the actually obtaining new clients?
Yeah, so Darrell has raised this with me before. Marketing is a terribly sore point for me, and I'm pretty sure it's very similar in the US. But with us, lawyers don't market. So even though I'm no longer a practicing attorney, and I'm more of a consultant, it's sort of like just goes against the grain to actively market. But I have relied on, I've spent a lot of time networking and meeting up with old colleagues and people in different other advisors, other legal practitioners. So they are cross-referring work. That's one thing. The other thing, the other things I was looking at, which I definitely haven't done yet, was around commenting on new pieces of legislation or cases that have come out that are key to contract law or any sort of thing in the M&A space.
Where are you posting those at?
So I haven't done it yet.
Sorry.
Terrible. So Darrell's got me thinking about it, and that's what I was thinking about was, well, I could comment on the new case. Well, for example, there's the Briskley case, which has just come out here, which is sort of playing around with constitutional law concepts and commercial law concepts around what is sort of giving, the principle of contracts need to be honored, and protecting that versus fairness in contract, and how do those interplay. And so we finally have, there's been a lot of opinion pieces, but we finally have a case on it. And lots of lawyers have done a piece on it and hosted webinars on it. And I think the differentiating factor for me is, if I were to analyze that case, was just to give the key points of what the case highlights, but then actually to say, what does this mean for you? What do you need to do? You don't actually need to be proactive on this, but when you are enforcing a contract later on, let's say things go south, this is what I would recommend you do before you enforce. And so it's just giving people a one paragraph thing of what do I do next steps. And so that would be the other option. And then finally, if you were doing a YouTube how to register my company, how to patent my products, because we're going digital, which is fairly new in South Africa.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so you can actually do it yourself, but most people just don't know how, and they end up paying 5 times as much to get an attorney to do it.
What's really cool about the comments idea is, can everyone see me?
Yes.
Okay. What's cool about the comments idea is that that's something that law firms typically already do. And it shows me what Darrell earlier, which is the why should I listen to you? What's unique about your background? The man that had helped write the Iraqi Constitution. Putting out the comment, LinkedIn, on your website, however you want, it's important because it shows that you're staying up to date.
2 things that I want to ask for next week, really 3 things. The first thing is the main thing, which is I want you to bring in detail the description of the service or product, the delivery, as well as the marketing. And this should be something that either you've already started on or you're going to start on and develop before the end of the year. This is something that's, so the 2 things that I want to speak on very briefly today, I'll start with the last one first, which is who else are you going to need? So thank you for saying that, Jared. And we talked about this last week when we talked about who else will you need to make this come to pass. So we started week 1 with what is your gift? Knowing your gift helps you know where you're not gifted, because at every business, there are some things you're going to be able to take care of where you're gifted in, and there are going to be some avenues and arenas that you're not gifted in. And the more you grow and you build and you develop, presumably there's going to be more of those areas. We're going to need more people. So the first question is, who do you need? I mean, you may not give specific names of people because you may not know their names yet, but in order to get this off the ground, what are the other roles that you need taken care of? Maybe it's marketing. Maybe it's thinking of the organization piece. Maybe it's the visual piece. CD, for someone like you, I think the key to you need somebody that can help you technologically deliver your course. I mean, think about it. You have somebody that's very technologically savvy. You can give them 15 clips of YouTubes or whatever that you think that people should watch, and they're able to intersperse that with your lectures and all that. Obviously, at the place we're at, before you have a huge team, you're going to take on more than not. But who else do you need? That's important to know. That's very important to know. That's why, Paco, for you, I said specifically, I want you to tell us next week something that you're working on now. Because if we focus on a center, especially if it's a building, you're gonna have a whole list of people that you need. Start with builders and, you know what I mean? So like, what are those things? But that's important to know so you can begin thinking about that. This is the second thing. How do you build yourself as a subject matter expert or an authority on what it is you're talking about, or your subject or product is centered around? This is very important. Why are you an authority? Remember, I explained, I think it was last week, that the recession of 2008, 9, and 10 really almost threatened to wipe out the speaker business completely, as it were. Because you had a lot of people who were speakers who were just speakers, where one of the things that has changed, that now people don't necessarily, the top, I'm just talking speaking now, the top billing doesn't necessarily go to people who are the best speakers. They're the people that are the best experts on that subject.
Or the most recognized.
There you go.
Speaker.
There you go. Or the most recognized, which goes to that marketing. They're able to, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So now that you say that, a good example to me, as I think about, is now the way that American, particularly Black hip hop, has come back to like the forefront of mainstream. You know, the shows on Tupac and Biggie and All Eyes on Compton and all that. And so I bring that up because I think it was P. Diddy was saying how many of the people that are in his circle are getting tapped for interviews about their days of coming up. And they're making a lot of money just giving these interviews, and that goes to being recognizable or having stories. What makes them different? They're able to say, hey, I was in the room when that song was being developed. Hey, I knew Tupac. Hey, you know, me and Biggie were best friends. So I'm just making the point. What makes them an authority there is that they have a special lean that somebody else doesn't have. Everybody should be thinking of that when you are trying to figure out how best to market yourself and put yourself out there. With me personally, you know, I haven't gotten into too much of my backstory, but I've shared a bit about, I've had some great times in my life and I've had some not so good times, but I've learned the not so good times, how to use those, particularly when I was in dark places. And I use that to share with other people. This is how I can tell you how to get back out of it because I did it myself. So in that way, I'm not just talking to just say, oh, you can get back up, or hey, inspiration. I've established myself as I've done this because this was for me. And that's an example that establishing yourself as an authority doesn't necessarily have to be from the high moments of your life. I just think that's important for you to know. Sometimes it's the mistakes. Sometimes it's the things that's like, I'd rather not, I rather wish that didn't happen. But all that authority is, I'm connected to it somehow, in some way. So, CD, I know with you, you talk a lot about marginalized people. You always mention that. You always talk, even if you don't use that word, but people who are downtrodden, the underdog. I mean, you obviously have a heart for that. So, okay, so how does that work? Well, you have to decide for yourself how much personally you want to share. But I feel like after 6 weeks of us getting to know each other, there's obviously something in your backstory that speaks to why you're passionate about that. That's key that comes out. Now, how, of course, you have to be wise depending on what the class is, because there's the professional boundaries, how that comes out. But that's important because that gives you a lean that other people may not. I'm not just talking about democracy because it's the academic course of the, just neat to talk about. I'm talking about it because I've lived in A, B, C, D life, or I've lived in countries where I've seen when it went the wrong way, or I saw this. And so I'm passionate about this. And that's what caused me to learn about this in the first place, because of A, B, C, and D in my life. Those are the things that people kind of pull to, and that gives you the authenticity. That's what we're living in now with social media and all these things. We're living in a world where people want to know, how authentic is this? Let me give you a quick example. This goes to show, so I'm going from authority to authenticity, and then I'm gonna end on this point. I had a friend who did music videos. He had made music videos in probably about 10 years. And this is what he said. The biggest thing that happened in the gap between the 10 years he made music videos, between like 2000 and literally 8 and 2018. He said, it used to be when you made music videos, you had to rent the cars. Because he was a hip hop artist. You had to rent the cars. You had to get all the staging right. You had to have all the lights right. You had to have the chains and all this, the backdrop. He said, one thing that I realized that changed in 10 years, people are doing music videos from their backyard and they're getting 10 million views. They're not renting fancy cars anymore. They're just right in their living room. And really what we're seeing is the rise of people saw what was staged. And I think as a whole, people are looking for things that are often authentic. Even if it's not, the things that sell are the things that look authentic. So what do you have as an authority that authentically places you right there in the moment at that place? When you think of that, that's what makes it different. So Paco, for you, leadership is just another word that people use and throw around until we are able to have you speak to it in a way that connects. And it's like, oh, when I think of Paco, I think of leadership, because I never thought of that before until he said what he said. You see what I mean? People feel that. That's what I want to get us to connect to, that real feeling of that authenticity. So when you're speaking about something, when you're marketing something, when you're delivering something, it's not just another thing that's out there on the market. It's something coming from somewhere deep. So for next week, what are those three things? The description of service, delivery, and marketing. How can I establish myself as an authority? I want you to write that down because I'm going to ask that. How can I establish myself as an authority? And who are the people that I need in order to really get this off the ground that I want in the short term? Those are the three things that I'm gonna ask for. And that's gonna really lead us, that's gonna be our last week. And we're gonna go over those things, and I'll give some, of course, closing thoughts there. Jared, what's your thoughts? Jared, kind of close us off. What do you think?
I just, to take a different approach than what Darrell very eloquently just spoke about, I would just say, as you're struggling to come up with ideas, I would, and you're welcome, everybody. Thank you. You're welcome. About what does my target audience, what does my community need? What does this space that I'm trying to operate in, what is missing, and what can I do to fill that need? And that will help guide you in terms of hammering out specifics. And whether that is going to a speaker and sitting through a class on citizenship and going, wow, here's what's missing from that presentation. Here's what, as a consumer, as a student, I was missing that whole time. And I would say add that and incorporate that into your own design. Even the Alternative Dispute Resolution Center. Look at what mediators are already doing and figure out what needs to be done in that space that isn't there currently. And how can you use those talents to fulfill that need as best as you can? Same way with Zach. That'll be crucial in terms of figuring out what does a small business startup actually need, right, and moving forward there and making sure at least the needs are covered. That'll help you in terms of hammering out specifics. And beyond that, I think each and every one of you are doing a great job, great foundation. I would just encourage you to dig deeper and really think about the details, the specificity, and thinking about the needs of your community. And also, what do you enjoy doing? Make sure you have fun.
Absolutely. That's where that passion comes in. Thanks for that, Jared. So we have about 5 minutes left. You know, do anybody have any thoughts, comments? I did want to answer. I think, Cedar, you put in here earlier, taking a marketing course. Would I suggest that? You know, why not? I think there's so much information out there on YouTube, though, that a course can be right watching a YouTube video, reading, and putting yourself up there. But I think, yeah, the more you can learn about marketing, putting yourself out there, selling, it can only help.
And that's not to say you have to take a marketing class either. And you can also think about what's worked for other people, what
Yep.
consumer to actually click on a link or buy a product. Always need a class. There's a lot of free education online, as Darrell mentioned, and build on your life experiences as well for you. There's been products you've been drawn. What made you buy them? What made you interact with them?
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Yeah. For next week, if you have any questions that I have not already answered, could you forward them to Liesel, excuse me, and Lisa will send them to me. If you have any questions, particularly, and if you want it to be anonymous, you can send it to Lisa. Lisa will just send them to me and won't say who said it. Because I want to make sure that I've answered anything over the 7 weeks that you might have, and you know, that you might not want to mention. All right, so are there any questions, comments, thoughts before next week?
So yeah, just maybe a comment. There is a storytelling component of all this stuff. If we didn't use the word storytelling, but I think everything we talked about marketing, I think brings us to the storytelling aspect of it, and what type of, as you said, Darrell, in my case, what type of stories or experience that I have that I can lean on that others don't have. I think that that's all the aspect of the uniqueness. I think is the basis of that is the storytelling, the distinctive storytelling. Yeah.
I think you're right. I mean, that's what, yeah, storytelling. I mean, this is not to try to plug future courses, but that's the actual second course that I am teaching right after this one ends this week. Next week, the next 7-week course is communications and storytelling. Because yeah, you're right. I mean, that's essentially what it is. You are telling a story about your service, your product, yourself, your brand, you know, and what does that look like?
Darrell, is that a remote class as well?
Mm-hmm. Same thing. And I think it'll be the same exact time and everything. It's just whatever Wednesday is after next week.
Liesel, could you perhaps share those details? Is it with UCT or is that separate?
I don't think it's not with, is it with us, Darrell? Oh no, because I don't know. Oh, it is. Oh, okay. Yes, I will then.
Yes.
Please do. Yeah. You're not rid of me yet.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'll definitely. So Lisa, yeah, I'll make sure. Yeah, because Irene and I spoken on that. Yeah. So, all right. So I like this. Thank you so much, Jared.
Thank you, everybody.
A lot of great thoughts here. And so, everybody, please make sure that it's written down next week. I'm not gonna, call any names or point to anybody that didn't write things down this time. Paco and CD. I just throw that out there. But next week, please write it down because all jokes aside, because when you write it, you think differently about it and it helps you to flesh things out. And I really want at the end of this 7 weeks you to have something on paper that you are committed to, that we can see some fruit from. So the goal is to make back whatever you spent plus for this course. I mean, I don't want you to just walk away with information. I want you to have clear counsel on how to make this happen. So thanks, guys. I'll see y'all next Wednesday.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you.